Pooped on my boyfriend's bed after I found out he was cheating on me, and I lit his car on fire. Disclaimers in my story time instead of me on Instagram. My boyfriend and I met in high school. He chased me for about 3 years. This man would tell me every single day that he was in love with me. This was before Instagram, so he would contact me every single day through Facebook. He would send me his favorite songs. He would write me poems. I mean, you can tell this guy was totally obsessed, right? After 4 years of this, I finally said yes to a date. And the only reason I kept saying no was because I knew somebody that had dated him, and they told me that he was crazy. I just didn't want to believe it because he seemed so perfect over Facebook. At the time, I was living in Manhattan, so I told him that I wanted the date to be in the city. So he took me to watch a show on Broadway. First off, I was really impressed that he could even afford the tickets because they were to a very expensive show. And before the show, he took me to a really nice dinner. And he proceeded to order everything on the menu. 5 appetizers, 4 main entrees, and a bunch of drinks. The bill came out to about $600. I offered to help him pay, but he said no, as he should. The entire date was really amazing. The only thing that I know now was a red flag is that he was kind of rude to the waiter. Of course, I didn't mention it. Fast forward a few months, and he asked me to be his girlfriend. Now, to be honest, I was dating a few other guys at the time, and they were all really great. But none of them wanted a serious relationship, and that's what I was looking for. So I finally said yes to my ex. Around that time, I started competing in pageants, and I got very far. I went to Miss USA. Can you guess who I am? We love this. Part 2 is up. I pooped on my boyfriend's bed after I found out he was cheating on me and lit his car on fire. Disclaimers in my story time instead of my Instagram. After he asked me to be his girlfriend, I decided to start competing in pageants, and I got pretty far. I won my state and went on to Miss USA. At that point, my ex and I had been together for about a year. To my face, he always told me that he was so proud of me. He loved that I was so dedicated and disciplined. To get ready to compete, I would work out twice a day. I also had a bunch of classes and held down a full-time job. Here's when things start getting complicated. One night, our friends had a get-together at their house. Our entire friend group were there, and I invited my best friend. Now, my best friend has always had my back. He is my ride or die. Her and I went to the kitchen to get some drinks, and when she went back to where my boyfriend was standing, she overheard the conversation he was having with another friend. Apparently, my boyfriend was telling the other friend that I was crazy, that he thought I had eating disorders because I would work out so much, and that I thought I was better than everybody else because I was competing for Miss USA. My best friend ran over to the kitchen to tell me everything she heard. At first, I thought, are you sure he wasn't joking? She said no, he was completely serious. I was really hurt. Instead of waiting for the party to be over, I confronted him right then and there. Asked him if he was talking bad about me, and then he said no, of course not. And I told him the whole conversation that my best friend overheard. But I told him that I was the one that overheard the conversation. That's when he started gaslighting me. He said that I was overreacting, that I had completely twisted his words. I asked him exactly what he said, and he told me he couldn't remember. I asked him point blank if he felt envious of me, and he said no. He said, you have to get over yourself if you think you're that important. Part 3. I pooped on my boyfriend's bed after I found out he was cheating on me and lit his car on fire. Disclaimers in my story time instead of me on Instagram. After I caught him talking bad about me, he denied everything. And he also told me that I needed to get over myself. I grabbed my best friend and went home. That means my boyfriend stayed at the party by himself. Well, guess what he does? He goes out of his way to find a girl to hook up with. And I know this now because a few of my friends who were at the party saw everything go down. Apparently, after I left, he started scouting all the girls. He would go up to each one of them and talk to them. Finally, he went upstairs with one of them. I mean, he couldn't even go somewhere else. He had to do it in front of all of our friends. Multiple people watched this all happen, and most of them knew that we had gotten into a fight before. One of the girls that was at the party actually messaged me and told me that my boyfriend was in the bedroom with another girl. So I ran back to the party. He was already downstairs at that point, but I asked him if it was true. At this point, he had a lot to drink. That's when he starts word vomiting, telling me that he had hooked up with girls that were way better than I was, and that I was so consumed with my pageant competition and that I was too skinny. Then he just started listing all of the girls that he had slept with, and 2 of them were my friends who were at the party. What I did next is probably not the best idea, but I did it. I grabbed a bottle of alcohol and went outside with the lighter. I poured it all over his car and set it on fire. Then I got back into my car with my best friend and went to his apartment. And it just so happens that I needed to poop at the time, so I thought just to do it in his bed. So I squatted over his bed and did my business. Then he messaged me telling me that he was going to press charges on me for his car. Luckily, nobody told on me, so he had 0 proof. And luckily, his car was fine. A few months later, he messaged me apologizing. He said that I was the best thing that ever happened to him, but I ignored his messages. No, I didn't win Miss USA, but I'm proud of myself for what I did to him. Bye. My boyfriend's become really abusive since I told him I was pregnant. In fact, I think he actually tried to unalive me, but I'm not sure. He and I started dating 7 months ago. I actually suspect that he's a narcissist, but honestly, I can't be sure. That's why I'm telling my story on here to get some perspective. When we first started dating, he started love bombing me. I actually had to Google what that was because I wasn't sure, but after I did, I can definitely say that he did do that. Just after 1 week of going on dates, he told me that he loved me. Then basically, he just pressured me into becoming his girlfriend. He even went behind my back to speak to my parents and convince them to say yes to him. He obviously made a good impression on my parents, and they convinced me to go out with him. 2 months into the relationship, everything was normal. He was really affectionate, loving. He made time for me. He would think of really creative dates. But anytime I didn't say thank you for the smallest thing. For example, if he opened the door for me and I didn't say thank you, he would get upset. Sometimes he'd make breakfast for me, and if I didn't say thank you in a very enthusiastic way, he would get really upset. After the 3rd month, he started accusing me of being ungrateful. And then after that, he started getting really jealous. He hadn't done this before, so I thought it was just a phase and that it would pass. But unfortunately, it did not. He started convincing himself that anytime I got a phone call, it was from some guy that I had met. Even going to the gym became a problem. He started asking me if there were any guys at the gym that I liked, or if anybody was approaching me, and God forbid if anybody looked at me on the street. He would somehow blame it on me. It got to the point where I wouldn't even want to go out with him. One day he decided to take me to this really fancy restaurant. Everything was going really well. I was acting like a normal boyfriend. But as soon as we sat down, I started getting this weird vibe from him. It's like he was absent. He wasn't there. He stopped talking and got really quiet. When I asked him what was wrong, he told me there was a table of 2 guys that kept staring at me, and that it was obvious that they knew me from somewhere, and that I obviously knew them too. Where did he get this stuff? I turned around to look at the guys, and they were middle-aged men who weren't even looking at me. Maybe one of them just happened to look at me when we came in. I ended up having to apologize. A few weeks ago, my period got really weird, so I decided to take a pregnancy test. At first, I told my parents, and I told them that I didn't want to tell my boyfriend. My dad told me I was being silly and to just tell him, so I did. And when I did, his reaction was terrible. He told me that the baby probably wasn't his and that I was cheating on him for sure. Then he said that as soon as we could, we were gonna get a paternity test. One night he made me dinner and I got really sick afterward. I started vomiting and I hadn't had any pregnancy symptoms, so I knew something was wrong. Instead of telling my boyfriend, I actually just went straight to my parents' house. They took me to the ER and there they told me that I probably ingested something that wasn't good. Now I'm thinking he might have put something in my food. What should I do?